Welcome to the Getting High on Leadership series featuring Paul Karasik. Paul is one of America's top management consultants helping leaders succeed. He is the author of 9 books, including Sweet Persuasion and Brilliant Thoughts and Provocative Questions. His insights appear regularly in major publications, and he is one of the most sought-after executive coaches. Paul founded the American Seminar Leaders Association and the Psychedelic Institute of Los Angeles. He is a popular speaker at national conferences and has been on stages across all 50 states and internationally. Paul's work addresses the question, how can we transform conflict in business into collaboration? With decades of experience in management, leadership, and psychedelics, he brings a unique perspective on personal and societal growth. In this series, we'll be discussing his latest book, Getting High on Leadership, The Leader's Guide to Higher Consciousness. We'll be exploring the concepts, techniques, and mindset required to revolutionize leadership. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the series. I'm your host, Sanchez, and we are joined once again by our author, Paul Karasik. Paul wrote Getting High on Leadership to encourage conscious leadership and help greater society and individuals reach this pinnacle of conscious leadership, and to also shine a light on why it's so important. We've been spending time in each section to highlight those sections and talk about the big picture. Today we're looking at the section called Enlightened Coaching, which can be found on page 113. And as always, if you'd like to grab a copy of the book, you can find a link in the show notes. Paul, welcome back, man. And today we're talking coaching, and I think we've moved in and out of like a coaching mindset, but I don't know that we've actually referred to it as coaching yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, coaching, what this chapter brings out, a lot of leaders I've worked with, they thought that coaching was telling people what to do and solving problems. And it's almost the opposite of that. Real coaching is helping people to nurture their ability to coach themselves. That's ultimately what a real coach does. So what a real coach does, she doesn't tell people what to do as much as create questions that allow the person being coached to find the answers within themselves, to direct that. So many times, like as a professional coach myself, I know the answer. I know the problem. I've seen it 10, 20, 50, 100 times. And I know the solutions. But as a coach, I have to approach it in a very fresh kind of way. Like, let's talk about, meanwhile, I know the answer, right? Just like the boss who tells people what to do, he knows that that's the right thing. So he goes, just go do it. I'm coaching you. Here's what you need to do. That's not coaching. That's called telling people what to do. Coaching is asking questions. It's helping them to refine their skills, to deal with the issue and come up with the right solution. If your questions are right to the person you're coaching, then they're going to come up with the solution. So, for example, let's say somebody comes in late every day. Let's just use that as an example. And they definitely need some coaching. So it could be an observation like, gee, I noticed, in the last 2 weeks, you've been late 9 out of 10 days in the last 2 weeks. And they go, oh, so you start with a fact, right? You start with some sort of factual thing. Now, you want to coach them so that they not tell them, so a bad coach would say, you got to show up on time, right? That's telling people, right? Would rather ask the question to the person and say, you've come in late this many times. What kind of an effect how does it make other people feel who show up on time? What do you think they're thinking?
Asking those hard questions, right?
Those hard questions.
Get the wheels spinning.
Yeah, like I'm coaching them to inquire within themselves, and then they go, well, I guess maybe they think I'm special. and somehow I'm above the rules about showing up on time every day. And how does that make them feel about you? Well, if I was them, I'd probably have a resentment. That, like, why is this guy, he can come in at 10:20 or 10:30, and I come in at 9 o'clock every day. And I resent him. So now, so they start to say, oh, so what I'm doing is not just missing an hour of time, because they might say, well, I did more work at home, that night, or I worked before I came in. That they can start rationalizing why it's okay for them to show up late. But you're not going to do that. You're going to go right to what's the effect of that. So I'm asking them to think about the effect, because they're not thinking of, when they're showing up late, they're going like, hey, I did my work. I worked at home since 7 o'clock this morning, right up till 9:30 when I came in. I've done, well, that doesn't work. So the next question I might ask is, based on the fact that it's our contract that you show up on time, that we agreed to that you work a full day, what do you think is going to be the consequence after some time if you continue to show up late? So I don't have to say, hey, get here on time or I'm going to fire you.
Right.
Let them.
There's no reason to pull out the ultimatums.
They're working on a specific problem. Same idea. Where do you think we could look for solutions for this? For this particular issue? Well, I guess we could start with the IT department, because they have a lot of influence on this. Okay, great. And who would you want to call? Who would be a good person in IT to check in with? Probably Joe. So they're coming up. You see, I'm leading them with questions so that they're
Right.
coaching themselves. That's what a real coach is doing. The other element, in real, if you want to become a true coach, is to understand that every person's different, and people respond to different things. And because of that, you need to personalize and customize your coaching to that particular person. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses. Everybody does. So now you have to coach according to who you're speaking to, and to personalize it. And this is, I think there's a word, I forget for the name of it, but it's been given a name. But generally, it's saying the information I'm going to give to you maybe is even the same, but I'm going to say it in a different way. Certain people you're friends with, certain people you hardly know. All that's going to come into your comfortability on the coaching, right? If you know somebody really well, you could use certain language. It would be very well accepted. Somebody else that you don't know so well, so you have to personalize and customize the coaching. So, first of all, coaching is asking questions and listening. That's the first principle. And the goal of the coaching is to develop the skills of the person so that they can be coaching themselves. Because when you're in the heat of battle, whatever that is, there's no coach there. It's an after fact, right? I mean, when I'm in the middle, if I'm a sales professional and I'm speaking to a prospect, there's nobody there in my ear, like with a little earpiece, saying, now ask them about that. And, now talk about that. It's got to come from the internal. It's got to come from, you see what I'm saying?
Right. And the coach definitely
that's
needs to
real
make
professional.
that space, right?
It's got to come from, how can I help them discover the answer? It's a lot like raising children, having two daughters. I can give them a lot of solutions, but they have to go through the growing up process. They have to go through the grist of refinement in life to really understand what I'm saying. So if I say, that never works, you'll never find it, they want to meet a guy and get married, whatever the case, I could say, hey, that doesn't work, but that doesn't do it. You know, I need to ask them questions. I'm really in love with so and so. Well, is it lust or is it love? Do you love them unconditionally? Because that's what love is. It's unconditional. Or do you love them based upon a transaction of
Right.
sex?
And this aspect or this perspective on coaching is really about like providing that space, right? And trying to encourage others
Mm-hmm.
to start to coach themselves. Even when they may not be confident enough, it's about trying to figure out which question can I ask to try
That's
to
right.
prove that, you know?
That's right.
So
And
it's
and the
kind of
final
finding
thing
that right question.
the final thing on technique here is that we want stuff done efficient. As a leader, we want all of our people to be great at what they're doing, and so on and so forth. But there's no growth in that. They don't come in great. They need coaching to be great, which brings in the other element why most leaders fail at coaching, which is you have to allow them to fail. You have to allow that, like you said, Rob, you have to allow that space for them to fail, to learn, to grow. Otherwise, they're just robotically doing whatever you tell them to do. And that's
Mm-hmm.
fine, in certain instances, if that's what the job is. But in leadership, we want to create leaders. The last chapter, we talked about growing people. That's what we're doing. When you're coaching, you're growing your people. That connection, when they feel that attention, when they feel that connection of you really helping them at the highest level, it increases their loyalty, their productivity, their commitment, their because you care about them. Remember, we talked about that earlier. In coaching, that's a real form of care. Again, if you're not doing it in some sort of militant way, right? It's being done
Mm-hmm.
um, with sensitivity to who the person is, with the intention of helping them discover the answers. And this, um, I don't want to, there's some schools on coaching that will say, well, don't ever give an answer. I'm not from that school. I think good coaching is a combination of helping them to discover the answers, but also giving them a certain amount of resources to help them in the process, right? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like I might
Really
say,
leading from the
yeah,
back of the room, right?
in the same scenario I just described, I might say to them, hey, maybe you want to start with IT. You know, what do you think? And maybe Joe in IT would be a good contact for this. And so it's a combination of consulting in a sense and coaching. But I want to minimize the amount of answers and direction I'm giving to them, because that's not the highest form of coaching. That's, again, telling people what to do. Um, so many leaders I've met over the years and continue to meet who say I'm a great coach, and I see them in an action, and they're not getting into the thick of things with them. They're listening, and then they're giving answers and telling them what to do. And um, there's no growth in that. There's no growth in that. As I said before, when you grow people, that's the greatest value you can give to them, and they know it. They know it. I personally thank God for all the great coaches I've had through the years. Some were informal coaches, but some were formal coaches in different areas of my life. I mean, the great ones helped me discover this, how to find solutions as opposed to giving them solutions.
Right. Right. And I think that that kind of insight can definitely help a
Mm-hmm.
leader or a manager, anyone looking at a team and trying to help them along. You don't want
Mm-hmm.
to think about it, right, as laying down the law. It's about
Yeah.
finding that law through a series of questioning.
It's all
And
about
yeah, that
questions. Mm-hmm.
enlightened coaching is a good title maybe for the second book.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've threatened myself with writing a book on coaching because it's needed so badly. I mean, like I
Hmm.
said, 9 out of 10 times they're not real coaches. You know, I want to create an environment for them. I want to offer them things to inquire about. to find solutions. I want to give them cues, and on occasion give them solutions, like I said, but minimize that. I think it should be about 80% questions in pure coaching, and then 10-20% of actually providing answers, which is what most coaches think they're there for, but they're not. Not in enlightened coaching. So I think that wraps it up pretty good.
Nice. Wonderfully put, Paul. And thank you for the insight and wisdom on this episode. And thank you all for listening and watching. As always, you can start it from the beginning of the series or join us next week and pick up from here. You can find a link for the show notes down below, and feel free to send any questions, comments, or thoughts to Paul and I. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Getting High on Leadership series. If you have any questions, you can comment below or send them in via email to paul@paulkarasik.com. Follow him on Instagram at PK_The Conversation. Find out more at wholesalerinstitute.com and psychedelic-awakening.com. The Getting High on Leadership series is produced by Rob Sanchez and Apartment 113, which can be found at apartment113.com and followed on Instagram at APT_113.